quick episode recap. Late at night, while Fraurem is working to manage the village's accounting, her father, Bezel, comes to visit her. He has urgent news that the princess is gathering troops to start a military campaign. She is shocked that the kind princess would do such a thing, but Bezel explains that she recently acquired new followers that convinced her to do so. They are daughters of powerful aristocratic families, but they certainly aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. But even worse is that, the target of their campaign is the village. Bezel has already tried to have the demon lord convince his daughter not to, but he dotes on Yuri too much to say anything. Likewise, Fraurem had been sending in reports to the demons about the village's power, but the reports were so unbelievable that they brushed it off as unreliable. If she were to directly step in to stop the army from marching, Fraurem would likely be branded a traitor and enemy of the kingdom. The campaign is set to begin the next day, and Bezel hopes to find someone in the village that could stop the forces. Finding someone strong is not an issue, as most of the residents are considered monsters to face on the battlefield, but finding someone that won't destroy the demon kingdom as a result is difficult. Fraurem decides to look elsewhere to resolve the issue. In exchange for some apples, the Lamia girls were more than happy to threaten and beat up the army. After showcasing the might of the village, the girls and the princess are taken to meet Hiraku. Fraurem explains that they are acquaintances from the demon kingdom that will be working for her for the foreseeable future. They are willing to work like their lives depend on it, and she doesn't mind if Hiraku decides to dispose of them if they harm the village in any way. But more than them, Hiraku was curious about the girl sitting on a throne. She is introduced as Yuri, and Fraurem explains she came to visit because she was concerned about her well-being. He does not need to pay her any special attention, and is asked to put her to work before she leaves. With everything explained, Hiraku leaves, showing them around the village to Fraurem, and he exits. She warns the girls that their intention to attack the village should be kept secret, and that they should work hard if they expect to live a long, happy life. Their identities as daughters of nobility should also be kept hidden, meaning that the princess will also only be called by her name, Yuri, instead of her title. Yuri doesn't mind at all, and instead is rather excited to start touring the village. True to her actions, the princess demonstrates her curiosity at everything that is shown to her on the tour, taking interest in the village's development. She also loves touching the young boys because she likes soft things. On the contrary, the other noble girls keep their distance from everything, only observing from afar. It's only when they visit the apple orchard that they finally talk, if only to boast that they've eaten it before. Listening in their conversation, Leah infers their identities as nobles, and Fraurem gets peeved. This is especially true when the girls discuss how lucrative it would be if they took over the village. Afterward, they are introduced to Lasti, and Yuri is surprised by the cute appearance, contrary to the dragon's destructive nature. Further behind them, the noble girls find it demeaning of their stature to stay in the village and look for a chance to escape. Time and time again, they encounter the many spiders and wolves that guard the village, and they give up the thought of running away. After facing many disasters, the moral of the story is that they decided to work hard to live long. Fraurem intends to keep them under her to reduce her workload as part of the town hall. Not long after, Fraurem and Yuri have their own chat in private. Yuri regrets trying to start conflict with such a peaceful village. Apparently, the demon lord had warned Yuri, but the fact that her close friend might have been taken hostage is what pushed her to go after the village. Fraurem is her childhood friend, and Yuri is frustrated with the sudden distance they have, and asks to keep in close contact with each other, to which she agrees. They also get to enjoy playing a bit with the infernal wolf cubs, and Yuri is amazed that they could experience this. It's now dinner time, and the noble girls admit that while the work is hard, the delicious food and comfy baths makes everything worth it. Hiraku is happy to see that they are getting used to living in the village, But upon noticing Ru, he takes note that she hasn't changed from her adult form in a while. Ru dismisses it, saying it's just dysfunctional transformation magic, and that she should be back to normal soon. The next morning, Yuri wants to participate in the farm work. The noble girls were adamant she doesn't, as it's the work of commoners and unfit for a princess. She also hopes for the noble girls to assist her as well. And so the day is spent having fun working the fields, watching little boys, and enjoying a good meal. It's now time for Yuri to depart back to the Demon Kingdom. As she thanks everyone for their hospitality, Senna gives her a basket of baked goods for her to take back. The little boys are wistful at her leaving as they've enjoyed having her play and touch them. She promises to come visit often, and also hopes Fraurem would do the same. Yuri then calls out on the noble girls for not leaving with her. They insist that there are still many things for them to learn in the village, and that they have yet to pay back everyone's hospitality. It would have been more convincing if they weren't talking while stuffing themselves. So after giving her last greetings to everyone, she is teleported back with Beezle. A few days later, the Demon Lord complains to Beezle that Yuri has changed since coming back. Beezle attributes it to her recent interest in politics and diplomacy, and that she has finally become an adult. Galgardo misunderstands that she found a man and gets upset, but at Beezle's warning that his attitude will garner her dislike, he immediately calms down. It is now autumn, and the village has started to collect and store their harvest in preparation for the coming winter. However, the harvest is too abundant that there are many produce left over that couldn't be storaged. As a solution, Lasti and Hakuren offer to take the excess harvest and share it with their respective parents. We are familiar with Lasti's parents, but who are Hakuren's parents? They are the Emperor Dragon Dosu and the Hurricane Dragon Reimarin. Tia is surprised that all the dragon are connected to each other so tightly. As so, Lasti started her trip to her parents and then after to Shishato town, where Michael asked Lasti to kill some pesky sea monsters that disrupt their trade. She received the monster meat as compensation, and Lasti believes that the monsters she defeated were likely the Chanko that Hiraku had been interested in before, and excitedly tells him to make hot pot for dinner. At the same time, Hakuren flew north to deliver to her parents, but on the way back, she found some elf girls to lead back to the village. Upon seeing them, Hiraku instinctively calls them dark elves, but in fact, they are mountain elves. They have been struggling to gather food as of late, which is why Hakuren offered to guide them to the village. The leader of the group introduces herself as Ya, and she hopes that Hiraku would take them in. At his initial hesitation, she sadly concluded that he was turning them away, but in fact, he was just worried about the housing situation. Happy to have a new home, Ya states they are fine sleeping on the ground. As new residents, the mountain elves want to contribute by catching some food, however the beasts here are strong, and nothing goes their way. Seeing their struggle, Hiraku insists they don't push themselves too hard. But she doesn't want to be a burden to the village, and now that the hunting they were confident in failed, she looks for something else to help with. She notices Hiraku working on something, and Hiraku explains he wants to make pottery for the village's use, but the results aren't flattering. He deduces the soil is the issue, and Ya immediately grabs the opportunity to redeem her group. She volunteers to search for the clay needed as her race has a good understanding of the earth. Not long after, Ya confidently shows off the pottery made, and Hiraku excitedly asks her to make more. While on the search for the clay, Ya and her group seem to have discovered a dungeon in the north near the mountains. Leah reports this discovery to Hiraku, and hopes that he will permit them to send a group to investigate it. And so a survey team was sent off. Not long after, a male bathhouse was finally completed, and Hiraku can enjoy the bath in silence. Or at least, it's way better than when he had to share the bath surrounded by his harem, because apparently that was awkward for him. Outside the bathhouse, Fraurem caught the noble girls trying to sneak into the male bathhouse. It turns out they wanted to use the chance to seduce Hiraku and raise their standing in the village, but Fraurem explains they need to properly work their way up, and gives them their last warning. The survey team finally came back from the dungeon, and they come bearing urgent news. All the elf girls have gathered together to meet with Hiraku, and they request that they immediately send an extermination party to the dungeon. What was discovered was the lair of a bloody viper, which Hiraku remembers as the giant snake that fought the bear in the past. Its meat is very important to them, and they state their race's survival is on the line. Seeing his confusion, Ya explains that the viper's meat is known to increase one's vitality and improve childbearing conditions. Nervously, Hiraku suggests they wait for winter to pass before acting, and he manages to glaze over the situation. Winter is fast approaching, and one day Hiraku goes to visit a sick Rue. She's been feeling nauseous with a fever all this time, so Tia suggests she makes a medicine for herself. Apparently, she has also been craving sweet fruits and tomatoes as of late, and listening to the symptoms, Senna and Tia immediately connect the dots. A worried Hiraku asks Senna what she knows, and she congratulates them on their baby.